Welcome in Chiefs Kingdom to Cheifs Latest, your one-stop spot for everything Kansas City Chiefs in 15 minutes or less. It is your host, Calvin Sawyers. Happy Monday, I gotta say. This is a weekend of football I'd like to forget, as I'm sure some of you would also like to forget. Couldn't get the win on Friday if you're the Chiefs. My Hawkeyes couldn't get the win Saturday. But I will say, if there is one team that did win this weekend, it was my fantasy football team. So, hey, off to a good start there. I'll take them 1-0 there. But it does suck to see the Chiefs start off 0-1. And not only that, suffer a brutal injury. We're going to dive into it all. But before we do, you know the drill. It does not matter what platform you are listening to. Go ahead, stop for a moment, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you turn on notifications because we have daily, that's right, daily videos here at Cheifs Latest, Monday through Friday. We already got through week one. It's only going to get faster and things are going to pick up from here. So you're not going to want to miss any of the news, actions, or rumors regarding the Kansas City Chiefs. So please hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, as it not only helps me in the channel, but it's going to help you stay up to date with everything Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I mentioned despite a loss, the Chiefs took another L, and that was suffering an injury to wide receiver Xavier Worthy, who dislocated his shoulder after he crashed into his teammate Travis Kelce. Kind of an eerie echo of Mahomes landing on Rashee Rice last year and having him injured the rest of the way. No clear timetable yet, but this really could sputter a passing game that needs as much help as it can get right now. Of course, Rice suspended until week 7 as well, so the Chiefs really do face a brutal stretch against teams like the Eagles, Ravens, Lions, without two vertical playmakers. That's going to put Mahomes in a tougher spot than he's already in. Yes, you can put a brace on the shoulder. That might get Worthy back sooner than later, and I'd take that. But the looming threat of surgery, the uncertainty of, waiting to know when we're going to know a clear timetable. I mean, look at last year and how long it took with Brown before we knew how serious his shoulder injury was. I think this is a massive concern for the offense. If you look at his stats last season, I always bring this up, but the last 10 games, 40 catches, 679 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He had 7 targets, 5 catches, and 62 yards a game from week 11 to the Super Bowl. He was becoming a very reliable target for Mahomes. His absence as the team's leading receiver down the stretch of last season, it's going to force Mahomes to now turn to Hollywood Brown, who was his favorite target on Friday, Smith-Schuster, who was his second favorite, and always the reliable Travis Kelce. And then Thornton is stepping up as that seam stretcher. Mahomes and him did have a connection, or at least try to build a deep connection on Friday. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but this absence is, as a premier deep threat, it severely limits the Chiefs' ability now to stretch defenses. It's going to clog Andy Reid's play action, his deep shot concepts. Couple that with a non-existent run game that the Chiefs displayed on Friday. Add Jawan Taylor's drive-killing penalties to the mix. Matt Nagy is going to have to find creative solutions, which is a concerning task for him to lead head-on, if you ask me. I still don't trust Matt Nagy as an offensive coordinator, but Worthy's shoulder, his dislocation, it's a brutal blow. There's no other way around this, especially with Rice out and suspended. Yes, that brace offers some hope, but the uncertainty, the tough upcoming stretch that the Chiefs have to face, this could expose Kansas City's thin wide receiver room unless, that's right, I don't believe that this is going to happen, but what if there is a reunion with Tyreek Hill down the road? I shot down this reunion probably a month and a half to a couple months ago on this specific podcast. But after I just talked about Worthy's shoulder injury, Hill being visibly upset in his own game that he played in, the Dolphins having dysfunction within the team, Brett Veach might be able to pull off a blockbuster move to have the Cheetah return to KC. Hill's even made it clear that he doesn't really want to be in Miami. He's fed up with the Dolphins. He's openly said he's wanted out. He lost his role as a team captain. He had his meltdown on the sideline this past weekend. Why not look? And I'll tell you why you might not be able to look. It's because of the cap space. Miami's has that hefty dead cap hit and makes this a logistical nightmare, but it's possible. So there's going to be some numbers I'm going to throw at you. I'm sorry for the number heavy segment we're about to get into, but this is possible. I just don't think it's feasible. And not only that, do you add on to the cap for a 32-year-old wideout, or do you keep your draft capital and just keep developing and building and hope you hit on gems, which you've seemed to be able to do the past couple seasons? I mean, if you look at Tyreek Hill, going back to him last season, statistical low, 81 catches, 959 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Again, career lows for a full season. But if you look at his Chiefs career, 479 catches, 6,630 yards, and 67 touchdowns. Here comes the numbers. Chiefs 2025 cap space right now about $2.84 million effective. Hill's 2025 cap hit $27 million. Miami's dead cap if traded $12.7 to $15 million post June 1st or 28 pre June 1st. So the Chiefs' pivotal cap savings via restructures, they could restructure someone like Jones and Taylor and save maybe around $12.5 million. That's a possibility. But again, the Chiefs' $2.84 effective cap space, it can't absorb Hill's $10 to $11 million 2025 base salary and bonuses. You're going to have to make some moves, like restructuring. But then if you restructure, that spikes future dead cap risk for 2026. And he's going to have a $36 million non-guaranteed hit. So Miami could eat even $5 million of this salary, like the Titans did with Hopkins. That could drop the Chiefs' hit to $5 to $6 million and potentially fetch Miami a second rounder instead of a third rounder per se. But they'd still face a, $12 to $15 million dead cap. So Hill's $36 million 2026 salary is a fantasy. It's a fantasy for a 32-year-old. Let's be real here, especially if recent struggles and off-the-field struggles. So you're going to have to restructure this deal most likely. $20 to $25 million average, $20 to $30 million guaranteed over 1 to 2 added years. But his off-the-field issues, McDaniel's hot seat right now, might make Miami hesitant to keep a disgruntled star. They might be ready to ship him off and just start looking towards the future and rebuilding. We know that they are in a weird spot right now. And with Worthy out, Rice suspended until week 7, Hill's return as a vertical catalyst would stretch defenses. But do you rely on Thornton and develop him and see what he can do? Do you stick with Smith-Schuster for the veteranness? Do you have those two bridge the gap for the season? I think that Veach would need to weigh the playmaker premium against long-term roster flexibility. So Tyreek Hill reunion sounds, tantalizing, of course, or the sideline, Miami imploding within themselves. But I think there's a lot of cap gymnastics that the Chiefs just aren't going to be able to figure out, or at least figure out quickly, right? We need a wide receiver right now. And I'm not even sure Miami would trade this early. So Veach would need to pull a miracle off to make this work without gutting the Chiefs' future. And again, I just don't think that Miami would trade Tyreek at this very moment. And the Chiefs need help at this very moment. So what could they do? Well, there is a quick plug-and-play option for the Chiefs, and that is, Tyler Boyd. If you're sniffing around and looking around, that former Bengals staple. Yes, he did flop with the Titans in 2024, but he is a name floating out there that the Chiefs could add quickly, plug and play, reliable veteran, this and that. Slot specialist, possession-based game. It's his lack of burner speed that is the problem, though. That can't replace what we need with Worthy being out. Worthy's that vertical stretch. You don't get that here with Tyler Boyd. But his down year in Tennessee does raise questions about if his career is nearing or at its end anyways. Do you even want to try to bring this guy in? There might be better names out there. Still, a veteran-savvy presence helps stabilize this depleted wide receiver room, though I'm not sold he's the answer to get, the deep shot schemes. If you look at his last season with the Bengals, 67 receptions, 667 yards, 2 touchdowns, 98 targets, 39.2 yards a game, but we know he was the third option there in Cincinnati behind some really good wide receivers. If you look at last season, again, terrible career lows, yards, 0 touchdowns, his worst since 2017, but he was playing with quarterbacks with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. So, hold that with a grain of salt. But if you look at his career through 9 seasons, 552 receptions, 6,389 yards, 33 touchdowns. And as I mentioned, a slot specialist, 70 to 80% of his snaps have been in the slot. I know this is a while now, but he did have back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2018 and 2019. So that polished route running, chain moving ability, especially that ability to thrive short intermediate routes, that could complement Kelsey and Smith-Schuster, especially if Worthy and Rice out. But again, I feel like we need to replace the deep threat. That's what the Chiefs want to do. That's what they want to try to get back to. And his lack of speed limits his ability to stretch these defenses that we're going to face. I get it. He was behind Chase and Higgins in 2023, subpar QBs last season. But he's not a primary weapon. He's never really has been. And I think his career is either, again, nearing or at its end. But with as much cap as we have, not much, you can sign him to a budget-friendly deal. Leadership, his value needs to outweigh, though, the risk of adding a non-quote-unquote dynamic piece to a vertical heavy offense, or an offense that wants to get back there to being vertical. But out of all this, one potential bit of help is on the horizon, no matter what the Chiefs do, because rookie Jalen Royals, he should return here soon. He's been sat out the start of the season due to some knee tendonitis, so his status for week 2 is still unknown, but fingers crossed that he is returning or will be in the lineup here soon. All right, speaking of Friday, I keep mentioning, we saw this, we saw that, Thornton this, Mahomes that. Well, let me give my thoughts and opinions here from week 1 on the Chargers. It was a sloppy mess in my eyes. 10 penalties, which is shocking to the Chiefs because last season they were the 4th least penalized team in the league. So you were already getting put behind the sticks in this one. And a major contributor of all this was Jawan Taylor and his flag fest. We know how much he loves to draw a penalty. It has me questioning now his future as the right tackle. Again, let's not forget, he led the NFL in penalties with 20 plus. The secondary, too, it got torched. Herbert picked us off like it was practice, like it was a practice drill. 25 of 36, 318 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Defensive line provided almost zero pressure, especially against a shaky Chargers O-line. I went over this Friday. It's a makeshift O-line. Not only that, when you look at our D-line, Omenihu, Mike Dana, Noddy, 68 pass rush snaps combined, and they also combined for a 0% win rate. Awesome. Good job. Love to see that. I will say, though, I am being a little bit of a Debbie Downer. Mahomes' legs, Thornton's flashes, even on special teams, and mixed with just beating his man constantly again and again down the field, it was promising. But there was no run game. And Hicks' coverage woes had me worried about, the team's ceiling against some tougher opponents in the AFC. Going back to Hicks, he had a rough game. 39 snaps, 29.7 PFF grade, allowed 4 catches for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns. Someone get Justin Simmons on the phone, please. If we look at the Chiefs' non-existent run game, 10 total carries between 2 backs. They split at 5 and 5. 41 yards combined. What was the lone highlight on defense? It was Drew Tranquil. Yeah, he had some miscues, but finished with 5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. And his run stops were nice. Had a couple good run stops in there as well. I was impressed with Drew. But Taylor's penalties, including drive just killing holds, false starts, I think Moore might rotate in now as the starter. With $20 million in potential cap saving, if Taylor is cut post-2025 as well, his leash feels very short. The secondary, who has had the likes of Eric Berry, Tyrann Mathieu, Justin Reed, we've been blessed. It's looked shaky. And not only that, Fulton, the highest paid cornerback, took 13 coverage snaps on Friday. That was compared to Chamari Connor, who took 41. And what year are we in where Keenan Allen was going off? I had to check the calendar. Was it 2025? It was. But I couldn't believe Keenan Allen was dicing this up like that. And I mentioned that quote-unquote mediocre O-line. I thought it was. It handled us well. Bozeman, Johnson, Pipkins, because Slater had to move to IR. Should have been a feast for that unit for Spags. But again, hardly any pressure. Herbert just went to town like a surgeon. But I did like Mahomes in the pocket escape. He looked like an artist there. That's an underappreciated thing of Mahomes is his legs and his mobility. He doesn't do it much, but when he does, it usually results in very, very good things. But there are some early accuracy issues. Red zone stalls again, not good. So the Chiefs' penalty-ridden Week 1 loss, it exposed Taylor's liabilities, exposed a shaky secondary, and it exposed a dead run game. But thank God for Mahomes, who had some mobility, who still showed some magic. Thank goodness for Drew Tranquil. Hopefully he'll spark some defensive play. They need to clean this up fast before, of course, the Super Bowl rematch with the Eagles. Otherwise, they have a very good chance of starting the season 0-2. I didn't mean to be such a Debbie Downer here on this Monday, but not a lot to talk about happy-wise, I guess, when it comes after a loss. But let me know in the comments what you think. Is it even possible, or would you even want to try to risk our future just to bring Tyreek back for a couple seasons? Let me know there, or would you rather go the route of like a Tyler Boyd? Love to hear it all. I've appreciated everyone's, love and support and all that the past couple weeks. It's mean a lot. Our numbers have gone up. And again, I just really, really appreciate it. You are listening to Cheifs Latest. I am your host, Calvin Silvers. And until next time, have a good one.